So I was doing a revival in Linden, at Linden Baptist Church. Been 10 years ago. I was his granddaddy, Billy Harris. And on Sunday night, I was telling a story about that, trying to hide from the Lord behind the woman with the big hair. Well, there was a woman sitting in the back of the church that had the bouffant hair. And so when it's over with, she walked down front, and she said, well, you can tell I got the hair. And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, well, I told her I was born in 1951. And, I told her. And she said, well, you didn't look your age till I got close to you. And I wanted to say, well, you looked your age from the back of the church. But I thought, well, that's when the fight broke out, It's I started to say that, and I thought, no, I better not. But here's the deal about how do you apply that. By the time you get to this point where we're going to kind of wrap things up with and go on this retreat with your transition team, you've gotten real close to this church. And you're going to see what they look like. And hopefully, the closer you get to them, you're going to see some things that it's good. And there's things that they need to work on, and there's some opportunities that they have as you get close to them. So those are the three things that we're going to help you focus on: is celebrations, opportunities, and challenges. Now, I've been doing this a long time. I tell you this. I had been in my 15th church, and I did fee-based consulting at Lifeway for 7 years. Traveled all around the country working with big churches. And what I found was that there were three categories that churches need to identify out of the 5 functions. We certainly deal with all of that, but it's those 3 areas. We do not know how to celebrate very well. We as Baptists are not good at celebrating. I think it goes back to our rural roots. It's even tied in with some works theology, I think, and all that. We're not really good at celebrating what God has done and all that. There's just always more to do. But that's what we're going to talk about. So let's look at page 127 here. It says the Transition Team Retreat, okay? So y'all stay awake now and stay with me. 129, okay, all right, 129, there we go, okay. It says, I'm just going to read some of this, okay? So, lead the team on a retreat. So, here you've been with them now. This is probably 6 months in, okay? That's about right. You've been working with them to compile all this information we've talked about. Just Henry has talked about this diagram. You've tried to get them to understand about how a church functions properly. And you're trying to disciple this group, this transition group. But also they've been working behind the scenes. Now Luke asked me earlier, who do I meet with? Do I meet with every team? I'll generally have 3 or 4 teams working, 3 or 4, depending on how big the group is. I worked with Springfield Baptist in Springfield, Tennessee. I was there 2 years. And I had 35 people on my team. And there were reasons for that. And I ended up with 5 teams. And so, but that was a little bit challenging for me to be engaged with all those teams. What I've found, and this is not necessarily in the material, but I have generally worked with I have an administrative team. And I handpick pretty much who needs to be on there. I want to look at documents. I want them to look at their budget, how the budget is allocated. Is the budget allocation, is it aligned properly with ministries that are making a difference? Why are we spending money on this if we're not getting any return? So we do an analysis of the budget. We look at all their documents. We look at how do they make decisions. We look at how they're organized. Do they have current job descriptions? Here at the big church, Eastwood Baptist Church, it's a big church, had no job descriptions. Unbelievable. I don't. How would you know what? They had no job description for the pastor. I said, what's he supposed to do? Lead the church. Had no job description. I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? How do you know if he's been effective or not? I have an administrative team, and then I have a discipleship team that looks at all of the ministries, everything. We're looking at Bible study, we're looking at children, preschool, youth. We're looking at the Sunday school, what's going on Wednesday nights. It's a discipleship team that includes, let me back up. The administrative team includes the facilities. So we're going to look at their facilities. That's part of my expertise. I am a civil engineer. I've built a bunch of buildings. I know buildings. I know how to analyze all that kind of stuff. So I'm involved in that. And then I have a discipleship team that encompasses almost all the ministries. And then I have a worship outreach team that the outreach includes all the missions, all the things that we're doing outside the church. The discipleship team is pretty much a lot of what we do inside the church. So your involvement then would probably be determined by what you feel like you are most passionate or skilled at. Okay? Worship, to me, my mantra is less music, more preaching. Hello. Now, aren't you all preachers? You ought to get an amen there somewhere, It's like, sing less songs so I can preach more, or have more time for the invitation. But, I enjoy being involved in that, and I certainly enjoy the outreach part of it. But I feel like that my experience with the administrative part, I know more about that than they do. So I want to impact that significantly. If I have staff people, I'll have them involved in some of the others, or if I have some strong leaders, I'll make them. So, does that make sense? Hello. It's a good time to ask questions. I end up with 3 or 4 teams. If I had a 4th team, it would probably be around age groups. I would segment that, and I would bring the age group stuff out. So it's just really depending on the dynamics of the church.
Would you actually say to the worship outreach team, less music, more preaching?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, I say that all the time. But it don't matter.
Don't do any good, does it?
It don't do any good. They just laugh at me. They think I'm kidding, but I'm not. And, I tell the guy, look, if y'all want to get out of here on time. Now, here's the deal. I have learned to preach 25 minutes. It's harder to preach a 25-minute sermon than it is a 45-minute sermon. And so I've learned that over the years. I have served churches that had multiple worships. And you can't preach more than 25 minutes if you've got multiple worships. And if you do, you got people standing down the hallway that are mad. And you don't want them coming in mad. And then you don't want to with the preschool people, because if you go over to the last service, they've had those preschoolers for 2 or 3 hours and they're mad there. So I'm not as adamant, Roger, about it as I used to be. But I want the music to be Christ-honoring. This is kind of a tangent, but my pet peeve with modern music is that it's vertical. It's about me. It's me singing about me. And the hymns tell the gospel story. They tell a story. They share the gospel. They teach discipleship. A lot of our praise and worship music is about me. And I think it came out of my generation, our generation. We did that. Anyway, But I'm engaged. And so when I come to this retreat, I'm going to put them in groups. And those 3 groups, then, I let them pick which one you'd like to be in. If you want to be in an administrative group. But pretty much I have already told them ahead of time, I need you in this group. Because that is a critical deal. And then the discipleship piece, that group that's not at the retreat. This is when we start out. When we are starting their work as a transition team, I usually put them in 3 or 4 groups, and they work in that group the entire time. They're dealing with all this different information, and I give them assignments. So let's look on page 129. Here's what it says. The purpose of the retreat is to refocus the church, particularly the transition team, around the 5 functions, provide opportunity for overview of all the information gathered in stages 1 through 6, to guide the discussion around ministry possibilities, priorities, and to give the transition team time to determine next steps to prepare for the next pastor. This is a big, big deal. We've asked people to be praying for us. That Sunday morning, we actually lay our hands on that team, have them come down front and lay our hands on them, set them aside, ask God to guide them, ask the church to be praying for them, have their prayer partners be praying for them. And here's what we use then, okay? We use the list of the things there in the middle. Now, I've given you a handout, and I didn't get one. I need the listening session. I probably got one up here. Do I have one? You got one? Yeah, bring me the questions. I got one. So, here's, I told you that I have 6 questions. First thing you're going to do as a transitional pastor, once you decide to do this, is you're going to conduct listening sessions. Now, listening sessions means listening. Most of us men are not good listeners. Edward, what do you think? I know. You told me that. I mean, and were you listening? But I ask these questions, and I just listen. Now, people try to bait you and say, now, what do you think? And I just say, look, I'm here to listen. And I can tell you, I usually take my wife. She does the recording. Her handwriting is a lot better than mine. But we record what they tell us. When were the best days? What are you most excited about? What are the biggest opportunities? What's the biggest challenges your church is facing, internal, external? What would you like to see? Where would you like to see the church in 3 to 5 years? Describe the kind of pastor you'd like to see. How can I pray? It's fascinating, the answers you get. Now, you can add or not use any of these. I'm just telling you, my experience has taught me this begins to set the stage for those groups. So what groups are there? Well, I meet with Sunday school classes, generally. Adult Sunday school classes. I go to different classes, and they'll set me up. Usually takes me 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. And I do it during the Sunday school hour. I try to meet with 2 per Sunday. 2 classes per Sunday. And I'm in there for about 20 minutes. And then I go to the next one. And so all I'm doing is recording. Okay? So questions about that? Yeah.
At what point do you do that? Is that a couple months in?
No, I do it right off.
Right off the bat?
Right off. I tell them, first thing I want to do, I get somebody to set me up a schedule with the Sunday school classes. I do that as soon as I can. I want them to know that this is serious, and I'm here to listen. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to lead a process, but I want to hear what you have to say. Here's one of the reactions I get is that they won't say you're the first pastors that are come here to listen to us, but that's generally what they mean. They've never had a pastor come in Sunday school class and just listen. They come in and tell them stuff. They come in and ask them to do stuff. But they've never come in and tell me some things. You understand? And so it's an indictment on us.
I think this would also immediately reveal those who are disgruntled, those who are happy, those who are excited.
It does.
Yeah, immediately you know.
Exactly. And it's this that I use then to begin to pick and identify, not necessarily pick, identify who could be on the transition team. See? Because you get the vocal ones, you get the ones that are, that are more balanced. So, it's interesting. Any questions about that? It's a big deal. I compile all of this then. After I get, I'll have, according to size church, I may have 25 of these. And I'll go through and I'll go through and summarize. So, let's look at this sheet then, the summary of insights. Okay, this sheet right here. All right. You got that? As a handout. That one right there. That right there. Okay. So, what I do then is I follow what we tell you all you should do. I take the listening sessions and I summarize them. I've already given them a summary ahead of time. The transition teams had this for weeks, if not months. But I will summarize the insights I have learned from the listening sessions. What I've learned. Okay? And that's part of the group, the information that I'm sharing with them is what I have learned. So that's part of their thinking process. So that's what this is. You got the summary from the listening sessions, okay? You see that on page 1? This means yes, this means no. Are you all getting this? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got to make sure you're staying awake. Some of you are already dozing on me. So I understand the metabolism, and I understand you're old. So, and I'm old. So I've had to take some chocolate. So I'm probably pretty wired. Now, the second piece is what? Look on page 129. What's the second piece? Somebody read it. The compliments and criticisms from the Church Memories Workshop. Okay? So, I have given them a summary of what would Jesus say to our church. Now, they've already seen this before. But I send this to them a week ahead of time. This bit of information. They've seen all of this. But I want to re-engage them to re-engage with this material before we get to the retreat. Okay? And I want to be fresh with it. But you can see, here were the compliments. I mean, it's a real church. This is a church in Glasgow, Kentucky. Okay? Here's the compliments. Here's the criticisms. And, and there were just some, things that I pulled out that they were pet peeves, hand-picked leaders. Anyway, we don't keep people. So I'm re-engaging them with these compliments and the criticisms. Okay, let's look at the next page, number 3 on the handout. Page 3 on the handout. Okay, and then I'm going to give them a summary of both the demographics and the current reality.